what kind of expectations do you like to set for them of if you work really hard and you do what I recommend, what kind of progress would be a healthy level to expect within, let's say, 1 year?
Typically, something in the region of, I was following the plan, as it were, get a good university degree and then get a nice corporate job. Thought to myself, if I continue on this path, I'll have my boss's job and then my boss's boss's job, and I'll blink and wake up and be 35, 45, 55. And I knew that that is not the amount of purposefulness and fruitfulness that I expected from my life as I was growing up. They say a salary is the price you pay to give up your dreams, right? For someone like me, it's easy to say, oh, they're definitely on gear, but you've just got to run your own race and you've got to become the best version of yourself, and that's all it is. You know, the next 5 years, 10 years is going to pass regardless of whether you pursue your physical strength. And that is the one microcosm that's given me the power and the mental fortitude to chase success in other areas of my life where initially I would think it's impossible. Business, starting a YouTube channel, whatever it may be. If you want to catch butterflies, you don't go around with a net and run around after them. You build a beautiful garden and then you attract. We'll be in an elite group of people. Less than 50 people have ever completed this route in human history. A story for the grandkids, like I mentioned earlier. I live my life taking on suffering with a view to being proud of myself when I'm older. My last 2 years, I've been to a lot of countries, done a lot of experiences, and one thing that's hitting me harder than ever over the last couple of months is
I described you to most people as an adventurer, a modern adventurer. When would you say you started to become aware of this longing for something a bit more exciting, a life out of the ordinary? Was it something from childhood, or did it more turn on when you entered the workforce and realized how banal the rest of your life could be if you didn't change something?
It was an exact combination of both of those things. So I was following the plan, as it were, get a good university degree and then get a nice corporate job, and spent just over 2.5 years in that corporate job as an operations manager, and realized the grand old age of 25 was just around the corner, and thought to myself, if I continue on this path, I'll have my boss's job and then my boss's boss's job, and I'll blink and wake up and be 35, 45, 55. And I knew that that is not the amount of purposefulness and fruitfulness that I expected from my life as I was growing up. And in combination with that reality, I asked myself, what would the childhood version of me and the true inner version of me without all of the societal propagations decide to do? And if money was no object, what would your ideal life look like? And that's when, kind of as a young age, I was huge into action man, obviously big into James Bond, as I know you are as well, and intoxicated by that idea of living a life full of adventure. And so I thought to myself, well, no one's going to pay you to go and do crazy stuff around the world, Adam. So you've got to start filming it yourself. And here we are 2 years later.
Right. So the content was what has helped enable it to become something that's sustainable for you. It was they went along the same line. It wasn't like you were doing all this stuff before you started filming it.
No, exactly. So yeah, I literally jumped out of my corporate job. I was like, this is it. I'm going to be an adventurer and I need to upskill myself in all the things I'm interested in. So I just got my skydiving license when I left my job. And then as I left my job, one-way ticket to the Philippines, learned to scuba dive, learned to surf. And then I've just been adding strings to my bow gradually by then, higher and higher altitude mountains and things like that. And it's accelerated very rapidly, and people have been along for the journey from the fresh-faced version of me that's new to traveling the world to now fairly well-versed a couple of years on.
Yeah, I definitely remember that feeling, and some people listening might be experiencing it now, where you're at a office job and you look across at the guy who's more senior than you. He's maybe 30, 35, and you think, I cannot be him. Like, nice guy, but I do not want that life. To me, that's like selling my soul. But then it's very easy to think, well, I'm just going to do this for another 6 months. I'm going to do it for another year. You procrastinate. You don't come up with a escape plan. And then 10 years later, you are that guy. Like, he probably didn't think he was still going to be there either.
Definitely. And I got that feeling when I first did a work placement as part of my university degree. I remember walking into the office, this stale smell of coffee and everyone having an absolutely lifeless soul behind the eyes. And I thought, it really struck me, and it's still a memorable emotion to this day. And yeah, obviously carried on when I worked in the corporate world. People think that it's just good enough, it's just satisfying enough, those 2 days at the weekend and the salary you get paid. They say a salary is the the price you pay to give up your dreams, right? So
Yeah, it can be. And it's not enough for, almost every job. I can understand if you're a hedge fund manager in the city or on Wall Street, that might justify giving up on your dreams. But for most people, they pay you just enough so that you don't quit.
it's exactly that, and that's obviously the supply and demand of the situation for sure.
Yeah. So what was your first adventure that you went on?
So yeah, when I quit my job, I'd done various things, climbing mountains in England, a couple of things in Europe, and obviously started with the skydiving, as I mentioned. But I quit my job and I went straight to the Philippines, the beautiful island of Coron, in the northwest of the Philippines, and decided to go straight from never scuba diving to getting my advanced open water. So did a crash course in that. Was scuba diving 30 meters deep in Japanese World War II shipwrecks in sheer darkness in some cases, and then on coral reefs with turtles and loads of sea life. And that was my first experience of that world, the underwater world. The planet's 70% water, and we spend all of our time above it most of the time. And so that was the first thing where I was like taking just sheer pleasure in being in the moment and developing a new skill, and absolutely love that. And now I've scuba dived, not too many dives, around 30, but in about 5 or 10 different countries, don't know exactly, all kinds of shark species, and just following my heart regarding that as well.
Yeah, there's two sides to your story that I think are interesting. There's the amazing places that you've been, and you have all these incredible videos on YouTube and Instagram, and we'll link to those as well so people can see them. That's inspiring and maybe motivational. But then there's the other side of it of, literally only 2 or 3 years ago, you were working at a desk, doing a job that you hated. It's like the practicalities of actually breaking free from that. At the time, were there people in your life or perhaps nagging voices in your head that you felt like were trying to keep you in lane of a more average life?
It's a great question, and a lot of people ask me this about, the jokes and the hate from your friends must have been funny, that tall poppy syndrome of you try and rise above the rest of the crop and then you get snipped back down again. But I feel like I did a fantastic job over the couple of years prior of curating my friendship circle, and everyone in the UK was fairly positive. And typically hate never comes from above. Anyone that's doing better than you is never going to belittle you or put you down. And so the knowledge of that, when a little voice comes in that says, he's a YouTuber with 50 subscribers kind of thing, you can easily be like, well, the YouTubers with 1 million subscribers would never say something like that because they respect the hustle. So there was an element of imposter syndrome when you're going around talking to yourself with a camera and someone says, "Oh, nice, you got a YouTube channel." It's like, yeah, but with 50 subscribers. So it's an interesting transition at the start. But I think you especially to put your personality online, you need an element of that resilient wall that things aren't going to get through, because strangers on the internet. I had a YouTube short do about 1.5 million recently, and typically I only get in the region of 10,000 of my followers that are always around, and that's when the people come out the woodwork that know nothing about you just start spewing hate at you. And I'm sure you've had the same as well. I've seen a couple of your reels, your Instagram's done amazingly, and I actually flicked through some of the comments of people saying just ridiculous, mindless hate. And so unless you're self-confident enough and self-aware enough to know that that's just going to bounce right off, it can be difficult. But I feel like I was in a good place to navigate that from the start. And I would encourage anyone else that wants to put themselves online to make sure you're at peace with yourself. Otherwise, you'll be putting on a mask and hiding a little bit.
I think a lot of people would look at you, especially as many of your photos are with six-pack abs in these beautiful locations. People might wonder, what on earth are they saying how can people troll you? What do people say? What are some of the troll sort of comments that you get? Because I have a few like typical go-to lines that people will use.
I thought you were going to say I have a few things that I could belittle you with if I wanted to.
Oh, no.
I mean, typically, like, there's a lot of people will initially think, because it looks like I'm spending a lot of money, and for all intents and purposes, I'm spending a lot of my income on these adventures. And so people often go to daddy's money, or you're only successful because you're attractive, and they don't realize that I got no attention from the opposite sex before I'd actually worked on myself and built up my social status. So it's this loser mentality of thinking that things have been gifted to you and they're not as lucky as you are. Don't get me wrong, I'm extremely lucky to have been born in a Western country and had a decent education to be able to pursue the things I wanted to. And then the steroids one is interesting as well, especially on that fitness video. It was great. Because I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for 2 years. In the first year, I got no real fake natty steroid accusations, and it was a bit bad for my ego. I was like, come on, I'm in quite good shape, someone say it. So sometimes you get a load of that when it's a video that's done particularly well.
Do you think that people have just become a bit more cognizant in the general public of how prolific steroids are? Because I think in the first few years of social media and Instagram, particularly Instagram when it comes to bodybuilding and physique, there were so many people out there who were using steroids and were denying it. And with the whole Liver King thing that came out and a bunch of other people, I think people are starting to become more skeptical, which overall I would say is actually quite a good thing. Because before we had so many guys comparing themselves to people who were on roids but just completely denying it. But I think also people who have a decent understanding of the male physique and bodybuilding can understand that you can still get pretty big and muscular without using something like that. If anything, it's like a coping mechanism, I think, of the only way you could do that is by using drugs. And I don't use drugs, so therefore I'm better than you.
Exactly, and it's very easy to completely negate genetics from the conversation as well. I think the two best examples of this are, obviously I'm in the top percentile now after 10 years of training and a lot of focus on having a lean muscular physique. So I look better than most people would be able to if they were to achieve the best version of their physique purely through genetics. And then you've got the edge case scenarios like Mike Thurston and Matt Does Fitness, where they're like right on the limit of like, is like, for me, it's impossible to look like that. For 99.999% of men to look like that, it's impossible because they just don't have the the testosterone and the genetics. And so for someone like me, it's easy to say, oh, they're definitely on gear, but you've just got to run your own race and you've got to become the best version of yourself. And that's all it is. You know, the next 5 years, 10 years is going to pass regardless of whether you pursue your physical strength. And so why not take advantage of it and see where you can get? You might not look like Chris Bumstead, but you're going to look like the best version of you. And that's the only thing that matters.
I also see that there's a lot of male body dysmorphia. Even recently, I had a comment from a guy because I was talking about my transformation up to this point, and I mentioned I'm 6'2" and 180 pounds. This guy says, well, I'm 6'2" and I'm 220, and I think I'm tiny. You know, there is this element of comparing yourself to guys in the gym, comparing yourself to guys online. But as you know, walk around any street in any regular town or city in the West, and it's not that hard to have a top 10%, top 5% physique. For the guys that you know, a big part of what you do is you have a training program and an online thing that we'll talk about as well. For the guys that start out in the gym, what kind of expectations do you like to set for them of if you work really hard and you do what I recommend, what kind of progress would be a healthy level to expect within, let's say, 1 year?
Yeah, it varies person to person, obviously, with genetic variants and how much commitment they put in. And when I'm coaching people, I always make that clear. Like, I'm going to be in your corner so that you can completely maximize the amount of effort you give. But, you know, if you say from the start you want to be doing 4 sessions a week and it turns into 2, you know, that we're not going to achieve the goals that we've set out. Typically, something in the region of, if you're in monk mode, like really focused, I think in the region of 5 kilograms of lean muscle is achievable in a 12-month period. So that means you're looking at about half a kilogram of lean muscle in a 12-month period. Sorry, half a kilogram of lean muscle per month. And so that's a kind of metric. If I'm working with someone that's skinny that's trying to gain weight, we'll try and gain weight at a rate of about a kilogram every maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And then you know that, you know, about 80% of that should be lean muscle, and the strength gains are going up to represent that. And then there's going to be some tag along fat for most people as well.
Mm-hmm. What was your journey when you started going to the gym? What was your starting point?
I was extremely lean, extremely skinny, and I've always done a moderate bulk. So I've never done like a dirty bulk because I hate the way it makes me feel to be over-consuming and gluttonous. But equally, I've got a very fast metabolism, so I've always been skinny, and so I really struggled to put on weight. I started at 70 kilograms at 18 years old, and now I'm sitting at 88 kilograms. So the best part of 20 kilograms of lean muscle. I'm probably slightly leaner now than I was then as well. And that was a case of over the course of 4 or 5 years. So I made a lot of mistakes in the first couple of years, overtraining, under-eating, and then that leveled out to the point where I worked out over that 4-year period about 5 kilograms of muscle per year. But a lot of that came in year 3 and 4 when I completely accelerated kind of my knowledge, the amount of research I'd done in my trial and error, which is a necessary part of any journey. Like us on this call right now, the first videos we ever filmed, we were absolutely hopeless and useless and couldn't speak fluently. It's the same in the gym. Your form's useless. You're eating the wrong things, and you can either pay someone like a one-to-one coach to completely streamline that, or you go through the process of learning for yourself and learning from your mistakes and iterating over time.
Yeah, that's even how I viewed this podcast, because I did one series or season earlier this year, and I had great guests. I was really happy with the conversations, but I was comparing myself to Joe Rogan, Modern Wisdom, with all these in-studio guests, incredible production. So I thought, I want to wait till I can do it like that. But then I realized I'm never going to be able to do that unless I get those reps in and I actually build it up as its own thing. And luckily, with the YouTube channel being fairly big, I'm able to get great guests like yourself. I'm not just, interviewing the gardener or anybody that will talk to me off the street. But it's still that process of, improving it gradually. My mistake with the bulking thing was I did the opposite of what you did. I did a dirty bulk, and I gained like 80 pounds in 1 year, which is just, mathematically impossible to do in a lean way. But one thing that I'd be curious to get your opinion on was, I think for me, I'm glad I did it that way, because when you are the skinny kid, I think you can have this limiting belief that that's just who you are, and that's your genetic trap. Like, I'm just bound to be skinny. And then even if you get a bit fat, you go, well, okay, I was obviously wrong about that, because it happened, and it happened very quickly.
I absolutely love that you said that. It's so true. And that is the one microcosm that's given me the power and the mental fortitude to chase success in other areas of my life where initially I would think it's impossible. Business, starting a YouTube channel, whatever it may be. And it's that exact feeling of, as you're growing up and finding your way in the world, you don't think you have the power or the autonomy to be able to influence it. And then, at the age of 18 to 19, when I saw, if I work out, I can actually, my body's starting to change. And then by the age of 21, 22, people started treating me differently, looking at me differently. I was no longer the skinny guy. They'd look at me like the cool guy, and it changes the way the world interacts with you. When you realize that that's entirely down to the work that you've put in, and you have the power to change so many things in your life that most people think they're powerless in. It took me until about 24, 25 years old to realize, anything that I suck at now, you can get better. You've got the evidence that you've been really bad at things, and you have the power to change it, especially in your physique, like you said. So it wakes you up to the fact that even though I might have got this slightly wrong and done a bit of a dirty bulk, I do have the tools and I do have the power to shape myself, and I do, I have the ability, and you shouldn't put that limiting belief on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I also currently have the limiting belief of I've never been super lean. Even when I was really skinny, I never had the veins, I never had the abs. So right now, I mean, this is, we started talking about this 6 months ago. This is an ongoing saga for me of trying to get lean, but I need to do some cardio. I got my running shoes today. I need to do some cardio. It's pretty cold outside right now, but I need to just get over that and get some running in.
Running in the cold, I enjoy as well. So I haven't been running for the last couple of months in Vegas and then Indonesia. But when I get back to the UK, it'll be two times a week. Great for the mind, but also just increases that calorie burn over the course of the week. So you can force yourself into even more of a deficit. Because at the end of the day, it is a numbers game. Whether you do that cardio or you don't, it just makes it easier to achieve a more aggressive deficit when you're burning 1,000, 2,000 calories a week in running, for example, if you run 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, absolutely. With the traveling thing, a lot of people would probably imagine that it's very hard to maintain the standard of health and diet while on the road all the time, like you. What are your methods, or what's your mindset to maintaining the year-round abs, the good physique, even when you're hopping around from place to place?
First thing I would say is it's far easier to maintain a physique than it is to change a physique. So if anyone wanted to emulate me and do 12 months of traveling while trying to build 5 kilograms of muscle, it's not going to happen. You don't have there's too many moving parts. You don't have the steady state inputs in order to make that happen. For me, it's a case of my body has X amount of muscle, weighs X amount, and has X amount of strength. If I give it sufficient stimulus to make sure that sticks around, then it will do so. And so what that looks like for me is if I do 2 to 3 strength training sessions a week and I eat around an average of 3,000 calories a day, and hit over 150 grams of protein as a bare minimum, that's plenty of stimulus for me to completely maintain the abs, the leanness, the muscle mass, the strength. And so that's going to vary person to person and location to location. It's very different. I've just been living in Indonesia, so I have a routine here, and I have, it's easy to hit my protein. When I was traveling through Nevada and Arizona, it's a very different story because everything's greasy. You're eating in diners. So we actually did little tactics that, as you get to know yourself, you can become more efficient. So we actually did 2 meals a day, because the meals end up being 1,500 calories anyway. And then little tactics of choosing based on what you need, not based on what you want. So it will always be, I look at the binary code of how much protein was this meal going to have? Can I order extra protein for it? Is it going to cause me any digestion issues or whatever that may be? And you just have to learn over time what suits you and what's best for you. But the bottom line is, I always get at least 7 hours sleep, and make sure that that's a non-negotiable while I'm traveling. Unless it's a rare case where I'm doing a mountain or something. Like in my normal day-to-day, it's 7 to 8 hours. I always eat 3,000 calories. If I miss a meal, I'll double up dinner. If I'm eating with a few people, they'll be like, "Oh my God, so funny that you're having 2 meals." But you just got to do what you've got to do and put it away. And then just a bare minimum training stimulus of 2 sessions a week. And if you do that, if you do an upper session and a lower session once a week, and this applies for the Christmas period for a lot of people, whether they watch this before or after. If you've got a lot of family commitments and you can't commit to excelling at this point in time, or maybe you go on a summer holiday and you can't commit to excelling, just doing that 1 to 2 sessions a week means you're not fighting the momentum when you come back, and you can pick up exactly where you left off.
Mm-hmm. With the strength training sessions, so let's say when you're doing your road trip around Utah, Nevada, is it a case of just finding a gym around, getting a day pass and getting your workout in that way?
Yeah, pretty much. So some body parts are easier to train with no equipment than others. So what I would say to anyone is get to a position where you can do pull-ups or chin-ups fairly well, and you'll be amazed at how many opportunities there are, whether it's a tree branch or a goal post or something like that, where you can take yourself aside from the group for 20 minutes. That's enough training stimulus to maintain your back strength for a week. If you were to be able to separate yourself for half an hour and just get a load of pull-ups done, you're not going to lose any muscle for sure. And the same with press ups. You can find something to elevate your feet and do some press ups and just dedicate half an hour to that a week when maybe other people are sleeping, or it's a slow morning, or you're not moving or whatever. And then other than that, it's managing fatigue and training around it. So when I did that 7-day road trip, I got 1 upper body session during the road trip. I hiked the length of the Grand Canyon rim to rim, so that was a bit of leg stimulus. And then I was in hotels in Vegas before and after, so then did a session the day before I left, did a session the day I got back. And so much of how you interact with the world is the way you think about it. And so if I'd been constantly stressing, oh my God, I'm not training, I'm losing muscle, that's not healthy. You're not going to enjoy yourself, and it's also not true. So sometimes things are less controllable, or when you're giving up physical gains, you're making life gains. That's the way I always used to have to tell myself when I was growing up. It's you might not be making physical gains right now, but you're becoming a more worldly person, and that's more important in the grand scheme of things.
That's true. And I think what you said about you get to a point where it's easier to maintain than it is to build, I think that can be true about a few different things in life. I was talking about this with a friend earlier, because I experimented with the idea of being a digital nomad. Kind of like my ability to make money is not tied down to one physical location. And there's the appeal of moving around. I want to travel. I want to do more of that. But what I found for me was that it was difficult to maintain my rhythms and my work ethic while on the move. Like, as you say, too many working parts. Now, you're doing it quite successfully. So if there was a young guy watching this, maybe he's 23, 24, he's working remote, or maybe he has his own business, his own way of making money, do you think it's better to find a hometown like I have here with Chicago, get yourself a base, get yourself a routine, and keep growing that way? Or do you think it can be done while on the road and building these adventures and experiences?
It definitely can be done both ways. I think you have to understand yourself, the way you work, what you're willing to sacrifice, and try potentially. But one kind of word of warning that I would give to anyone that doesn't see the behind the scenes of what I've done. I did a 7-month Latin America trip where I was posting a lot on YouTube, a lot on Instagram, grew my Instagram following around 70,000 or something. And was doing flat out adventures as well. So it was non-stop work and non-stop adventures. And there's a point to be made about the things that suffer as a result of that. So for example, I had absolutely no nightlife. I wasn't going out and socializing or meeting anyone new. It was just me and my cameraman. From 6 p.m. onwards, we'd just be grabbing dinner and working until bed, for example. And so people don't see that. You kind of have to choose one thing to give up for certain periods in your life. So if you're focusing on working and traveling, there something's got to give. And it's very much the case that you can manage it and you can appease things and keep one stable while something else is growing. But if you are to give yourself a situation like yourself in Chicago and myself in London, in a week and a half's time I go back, where you have less things to think about and that element of routine, then you'll be able to flourish much easier in terms of work. So nothing comes for free in life, and there will be a trade-off. But you've got to decide if, working at 70% of your capacity instead of 100% while doing a little bit of traveling is more important to you in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and you also have to decide, as you say, what are you comfortable sacrificing? What are you okay not doing that other people are doing and enjoy? Or what are those things for you that you've decided, you know what, I have my priorities in life and other people might be doing that, but it just doesn't align with my goals right now?
A really good one for me is dating, chasing women, and nightlife. I find it very easy. I've got this kind of long time horizon mentality of I orient my life towards how whether I'll be proud of myself when I'm 80 years old. And so I think a lot of time people waste is sitting on dating apps or going out for drinks and forcing things and constantly dating, and that, or even just socializing in general, whether it's dating or hanging out. I've done my fair share of those experiences, and they've been meaningful and will continue to be meaningful. And it's not to say that I don't do those things and shy away from them, but there's a time and a place. There's a time to lean into those kinds of activities, and a time where you just need to settle down and do some work. I think that's definitely one.
I think there's also I see two extremes with men right now. I see the guys who look up to somebody like Tate, and it's the more women you can sleep with, the better. That was also the culture, I think, that we grew up in, the lad culture. When we were at university, it was just going out drinking. The more people you can sleep with, the better. But then I also see the flip side of guys who are like waiting for marriage. Especially, I think, in the US, so there's more of like a traditional Christian conservative revival going on. Personally, what I do, and I think what's healthy for most people, lies somewhere in the middle. But you can also end up placing a lot of not just your time, but your own validation on the way that you get treated by women or the experiences that you have with women. And sometimes the best things happen when you're not particularly looking for it. You're not on the dating apps. You're not going out to meet women. You might be going out to have fun with your friends, and then you attract people along the way.
Definitely. I've had far more success since. The phrase that I like to use with this is if you want to catch butterflies, you don't go around with a net and run around after them. You build a beautiful garden, and then you attract the things that are attracted to that. So whether that's male friendships or relationships, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, exactly as you say, you go out and you have fun and you're open to opportunities. And I think as a man as well, that stance of waiting for marriage entirely is not going to be the best thing, because you need to stay sharp, you need to be engaging, and you need to be, I think you might have commented on this in the past, you need to be flirting with everyone you meet, men and women, to keep your conversational charisma up. And so
charismatic, yeah, for sure. Not always flirting, but charismatic,
just playful. Yeah. I mean, it's another term, isn't it? But yeah, not receive this monk mode mentality of completely receding into your shell is not healthy. But equally, it's not about how many women you do sleep with. It's in a position like
The
ourselves.
quality.
Yeah, exactly. But in a position like ourselves, it's like when you're not insecure and you don't have to validate yourself. You can just relax, do your thing, and things happen when they happen.
Yeah, that's true. When you're traveling, because some of the places you go to are very different, I would also imagine that, when you're in some hick town in Nevada or Utah or on the roads, you're not really, that side of your brain almost isn't really engaged. Whereas I can imagine in Indonesia, where there's like probably lots of Australian girls traveling, that's a little bit more on your mind.
Yeah, it's very true how your brain can just flip on and off. It's depending on your stimulus, and that's a big thing with dating apps or scrolling on Instagram. You get into that that mentality of your brain's suddenly in that mode. But yeah, when a 7 day road tripping around Arizona, like it's not even a thought. And I'm, as you know, rowing across the North Atlantic next summer from New York to England, and I'm going to be on a boat with three lads for a month and a half. So we certainly won't be thinking about women. We'll be thinking about surviving.
Yeah, you might be after 2 weeks, you might be like, "Oh, do you remember what a woman looks like?" Nah, sorry, Adam, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I when I went to Scotland with my dad for we were on the Isle of Isla for a week, and yeah, I didn't see an attractive woman for a whole week. Sharing a room with my dad, I was like, I don't think I've been a sexual person for about 7 days. I haven't had any thoughts of that nature, any desires. It's just like different parts of your brain turn on at different times. Is dating something that your followers and a lot of young guys ask for advice from you?
Not explicitly, but when I go into slightly more detail and let them know that I'm willing and happy to help and give advice in those areas, especially in Q&As, people really come to me and say they appreciate it. I think not necessarily dating, but more just charisma in general, building your confidence, and that's something that I suffered hugely when I was growing up. Up to the age like through my late teens and early 20s, and that's something that lights my heart on fire when a young man comes to me and says that they're going through this confidence journey, whether it's through transforming their physique or from working on their charisma. And so that's why I like talking about it, because I've really come out the other side, and it's changed my life entirely. And so I know how powerful it is for young men to feel that. And in this age of getting a lot of masculine role models, you've got to be very selective when you get them from the internet. But to be a force for good in that way is a privilege.
When I first started watching your videos, it struck me what a natural presenter you were, like a TV standard presenter. Is that something that came naturally to you? Is it something that you had to deliberately improve, or do you think you just got better from doing it over and over again?
Thank you. Firstly, that's a great compliment, and it's definitely something that I intended to come across as initially. I noticed a gap in the market at the start that a lot of people that were trying to build Instagrams would cower into voiceovers and not be there presenting face on the camera. And so I realized if I can get good at this, it will set me apart. And initially, it was a case of reading scripts, memorizing one line, and then looking up and talking to the camera, doing it again, and then cutting it all together. Loads of ums, loads of so's, and all everything in between. And over time, you get worse, and you're really bad at the start. You get slightly better, and when you're editing your own things, you become aware of those mistakes, and consciously and subconsciously, you know what to work on next time. Combined with just doing the reps over time, getting used to talking to a camera, finding linguistical patterns that you like to rely on to make your sentences come from brain to mouth more easily. And now, yeah, from the position where I couldn't pull out a camera in public without knowing exactly what I was going to say before. Now, as long as I know what I'm going to talk about and I can run through it for a couple of seconds in my head before, I can off the cuff start to speak without stuttering and without feeling like an idiot. So definitely, it's a case of knowing you're going to be really bad initially and realizing that that's completely normal. Go and watch my first YouTube video if you want to see how bad I was, and then go and watch various other YouTubers if they've left them up, and then just improve percentage by percentage. But yeah, definitely, I think it's important to command attention because I was an operations manager before. I was in charge of a lot of people, and hopefully I think that transfers quite well onto camera as well, because I'm really speaking to you as a person when I'm communicating, rather than a more passive approach. So thank you. I appreciate the compliment a lot.
No worries. And it's funny because I think I had a similar journey of at the start, and I used to work in media, and I had been on camera professionally, so I should have been good at it. But in the 2 years after that, before, and then starting my channel, I'd kind of forgotten everything, and I'd lost that natural ability. So I would start with a script and do exactly what you said, go line by line, look down, retake. Then my notes started to get thinner, where I'd have some bullet points, and it just gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And now I like to, let's say I'm doing a video about Gary Cooper coming up. I've had to do a lot of research, so there are things that I will just forget if I don't write them down. But as you say, it's not a case of I can't turn the camera on unless I have everything written out. I'm wondering what, people that don't want to be content creators, to develop that skill, I'm wondering what else they could do. I also just think, you don't even have to post it. Anything that you want to accomplish, if you vlog it to yourself, it's like a journal times 1,000. That level of accountability and self-reflection. I can't think of anything else that compares.
Definitely. It's definitely true. I think that is the benchmark, even if you don't post it, or the gold standard rather, even if you don't post it, to recognize how you come across and practice that skill of speaking fluently and concisely. But I think a level down from that is more prevalent than ever in 2024, not shying away from social engagement. So going out and conversing with people physically rather than via a screen, whether that's prioritizing, I know we've kind of said the opposite to this to some extent, but you need to achieve it in order to move through it, which would be going on dates and being intentional about that and being like, okay, that woman didn't like me after that first date, probably because I was boring or I stuttered or whatever it may be. And so what can I learn about myself to improve on next time? Or hanging out with the boys, or going out on your own and making friends. It's exercising that muscle makes it improve over time. So even if it's not recorded and you can't reflect on it that way, just doing it, because so many people now live insular lives and aren't socializing like they used to.
Yeah, it's funny that what used to just be a part of daily life, even if you hated it and you were really introverted, you just had to do it. Whereas now it's like you have to make a deliberate effort to go do things. One of the things that I might tell a guy who comes to me for dating advice is I'll say, like, just speak to 3 people a day. Doesn't even have to be a woman, it could be an old man. But, when I think about my own life, if I want to speak to 3 people a day, I have to go do something deliberate, because I'm in here talking to a camera all day, which isn't male or female. And it's only if I go to a coffee shop, I go to a bar, I see my friends or a date, then I start having those interactions. Luckily, we're probably at a similar place where that's not a skill that I feel like I need to develop right now. I'm happy with the level that I'm at in terms of communicating with people, dating. But there are other areas in my life where I feel deficient. So that's where I put excessive focus and attention. So I think it's all about addressing those imbalances in your life. What are some things that right now you are discontented with? Somewhat, I see so much potential in myself to improve on this level, and I'm really focusing on this right now.
I really love the way you think, James. We're actually extremely similar in that regard. Before I touch on what those things are for me right now, I think a huge piece of free value that applies to this exactly is I've made a free newsletter of my 4-stage confidence guide. So it's how I've gone it's called How to Build Unlimited Confidence. It's in any of my links. You'll be able to find it on my website, in my Instagram bio. And it's a free download, literally PDF straight to your email. And it's the 4-step cycle of how you build confidence through competence. Which areas to address, and I give my 5 golden areas of the most important things to address first. So 2 of those things are your ability to communicate, and then also your physical fitness. But as you say, you achieve things and then you move through them. So I think communication and charisma and physical fitness are at the baseline of the hierarchy, and then you get to a stage where you're happy with those things and move on from piece to piece. And I think for lack of a better word, your value as a man, or maybe your internal value as a man, is compiled of how you feel about yourself. You use the word deficiency, how you feel about yourself in the things that you think you should be, or the best version of yourself. And so for me, the last couple of years has been extreme, like obviously building the social media and building that social status was a large part of my focus over the last couple of years, and now I feel like I've transcended that, and I'm extremely happy with where I am regarding that. Also going on adventures and building up my physical competence, so being able to do all of the things we touched on, like the riding and got my motorbike license, and then driving fast cars, or jet skis, or scuba diving, or climbing mountains, being capable in those areas. And now for me, it's very financial and business oriented. So my next 6 months, like I've been having a great time here in Indonesia, but my next 6 months are going to be mainly based in the UK before I do the North Atlantic row. And my priorities are financial and business oriented. And these are the things that I'm not telling anyone else what they should do, but what I consider to be the things that will upskill me the most and make me the most rounded person. That's my biggest deficiency at the moment. So prioritizing those two things.
It sounds like Adam's going on a bit of a monk mode in 2025.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll still be posting. And obviously we've got that crazy adventure across the Atlantic as well, but there'll be a lot of time behind the laptop in the early parts of 2025.
Yeah. With confidence, I hear it a lot that the physique is very important in building confidence. And I think it is, but I also remember being very skinny and still feeling very confident. And another thing people talk about is wealth and status. When I've done style consultations with people, sometimes, I charge a lot for them, so it tends to be successful older men. And it turns into a bit of a therapy session, where a lot of the time they are revealing great insecurities, a great lack of confidence, even if they have a Ferrari in the garage. What's your opinion on that? Because I do see particularly more of a red pill idea of confidence of, you just need to acquire more points and you'll be confident. What's like the deeper level that's going on there, do you think?
I think it's not about the objective points that you've accumulated. There's an element of that proof to yourself allows you to transcend it and move through it, but it's entirely about how you feel about it. So with your finances and your financial security, it's a case of where are you relative to where you would be happy, or how you feel about it. With finances, someone could be making 50,000 US a year and think it's absolutely plenty and not be insecure about it because it's all that they want and they need. Whereas someone could be making 500,000 and be crippled by insecurity that they don't make any money. So it's entirely about how you internalize those feelings. And like you said, with confidence, I was a skinny guy that wasn't confident. You were a skinny guy that was confident, and moving out of that and the world starting to treat me differently as that changed helped me unlock the fact that, okay, my confidence isn't tied to anything material and external. It's about how I interact with the world, but it can be a nice nudge in the right direction to interact in the world in a more positive way if you have that proof, that internal proof. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to quieten that internal voice. So I could be as confident as I am now with any level of physique, but perhaps I just needed that nudge in the right direction to quieten that voice to move through it.
And I think the confidence with the physique thing, because I would say I experienced an increase in confidence. It just wasn't a crippling lack before. But I find that the confidence with the physique can come quite quickly, because as you say, it's not always about other people's perceptions of you. It's just proving to yourself that you could do something. So even if you only gain 5-10 kilograms in a year or two, you go, wow, I did this, and that gives you confidence in yourself.
100%. Yeah, it's a great microcosm for life in general, because life's so turbulent. There's so many ups and downs, and the long-term path to success often has lots of dips into the valley,
ups and downs.
However, with physical fitness, it's nicer because you'll get ill, you'll get an injury, but generally it's that slow linear chug upwards. And using that as an example of, if I keep putting the work in, I can get from here to here. And like we've said already, applying that to other areas is very powerful.
What's interesting about you is that you're now at this stage with the physique where when you do the Atlantic row, you're going to deteriorate your physique. You know, that's not a good thing for anybody. So you're actually at the level now where you are prepared to even sacrifice your physique to some extent for a different level of accomplishment. Tell me a bit more about the backstory behind the row, the idea, the crew of guys that you'll be doing it with.
Sure thing. It definitely is the case. In the last 4 years in general, I've not been trying to get bigger or stronger. Like I said, no, I didn't want to take steroids. So that's when I decided to run a marathon, obviously starting running and risking losing a lot of muscle as a result of that. And then the traveling as well, sacrificing the physical fitness for other areas of life. With the row, I expect to lose probably within anything between 5 to 15 kilograms. And that will be a lot of muscle. I don't have any fat to lose really. So it's going to be a lot of weight lost potentially. But I'm completely at peace with that. Like I said, because my self-worth isn't attributed to strongly correlated with my physical form. The kind of medium length version of the story is I've been friends with a guy named Jack Jarvis, who's been in the Royal Engineers in the British military for over 10 years. We've been friends for a couple of years. And as I was traveling through South America, he actually has the world record for being the first person to row solo from mainland Europe to mainland North America. And he did that from Portugal to Florida in 111 days alone at sea. And so he's an incredibly resilient man, especially with the 10 years military experience as well. So he's friends with the people in the ocean rowing world as a result of that. And when I was in Ecuador, he gave me a call and he said, Adam, I've been made aware from the owner of this boat that a boat's been abandoned off the coast of the Canary Islands on West Africa. It was initially intended to be rowed all the way to the Caribbean, but they liked the idea of ocean rowing more than they liked the reality of it. So 4 days in, they got helicopter rescued from this boat, and the boat obviously couldn't be saved, so ended up floating through the Atlantic. And he said he prepped me to this prior, but he said after 11 months it's now been found by a Disney vessel just off the coast of the Bahamas, and I've spoken with the owner. He'd like to get it rescued and saved, and Jack's been teeing up the idea of another ocean row at some point. So between him, myself, I flew in from Ecuador, and then another Royal Marine who's got 10 years Royal Marine experience, worked on the British Antarctic Survey. His name's David Bruce, we call him Brucey. We all flew to the Bahamas, met each other there on this rogue island called North Eleuthera, saw this shipwrecked boat that had been taken in by the police. The electronics weren't working and it had no supplies on board. And so mainly Brucey, to be honest, got it in physical shape to be rowed again. We had to deal with some bureaucracy with the police over on that island to get it back in the water. Everyone there was super helpful, the expats and the Bahamians, to help us get it in the water. And then we embarked on what turned out to be an 11-day mission to row it over 280 miles from the Bahamas to Miami, to Palm Beach we actually rowed it into. And that was a crazy adventure in its own, and I documented all of that on YouTube. And so between the three of us and one more Royal Marine, so you're spotting the theme here, I'm the weak link. These guys are all incredibly resilient, and I'm the weak link in the group. It's now in Florida, and we're going to row it in the summer of next year from New York all the way back to Southampton, where the boat was born and built. So it's going to be 4 of us. The world record is 43 days, so weather dependent. We're going to graft really hard for 12 hours each of rowing per day, 2 men on, 2 men off. Broken sleep, we'll be sleeping in maximum 3-hour stints at any given time. The roughest conditions as well. Ocean rowing is becoming more popular through the mid-Atlantic route, like I said, from the Canaries to the Caribbean. The North Atlantic is a different beast, and we'll be in an elite group of people. Less than 50 people have ever completed this route in human history, and so it's going to be a hell of a challenge, but a story for the grandkids. Like I mentioned earlier, I live my life taking on suffering with a view to being proud of myself when I'm older. And so that's I try not to think about how much suffering it's going to be, because it will be a lot, but a month after, a year after, I'll look back and be so proud of what I overcame and what I learned about myself in the process.
Tell us why you're doing it as well, what the cause behind it is.
Yeah, so we've teamed up with a fantastic charity called Head Up in the UK, and they're just starting. It's run by a man named Paul Minter, and he suffered very strongly from paranoia and PTSD after serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think it was primarily Afghanistan. And he started this charity because when he wanted mental health support in the military, he was still surrounded in that environment, and he likens it to being a burn victim being treated in a burning house. It's not the right environment to be treated. And so he wanted to set up a charity that was preventative rather than fixing an issue that's already occurred, where he has this mental health retreat and goes to businesses for serving military personnel and also veterans, and helps them build the mental resilience habits so that they don't fall into a pit and commit suicide, because there's almost one suicide per day in the UK from veterans and serving military personnel. And it can be, and I resonate with this hugely as well, because when I was working my corporate job, I was not suicidal, but like extremely depressed, and I probably would have been clinically depressed if I'd sought outside help. And just having the tools to overcome that, and putting in the preparation in advance before you hit rock bottom, is what can help slingshot you out. So understanding sleep, understanding training, understanding nutrition and gut health, cold water therapy, animal therapy, even like playing with dogs, all of these little things can make a huge impact in your mental well-being and help you out of difficult times. And so he's seeking to empower, like I said, the groups that I mentioned, so that we have less of that suffering for the everyday man when he gives corporate talks, but also for military man and woman, I should say, when he gives corporate talks, and also for military personnel. And so we're looking to raise over £50,000 in the process for that charity, which is an extremely exciting part of the journey as well.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, and honestly, I congratulate you, and I think it's incredible that you're doing this adventure for its own sake, just as a physical feat, but also to have this motivation and the story behind it. I wanted to ask you, when you're doing your adventures, particularly by yourself, spending a lot of time by yourself, you're not able to scroll through Instagram when you start having thoughts, as most people do. Oh shit, I'm having a thought. Let me open my phone. What have you learned about yourself during these periods of solitude that most modern people don't experience?
My last 2 years, I've been to a lot of countries, done a lot of experiences, and one thing that's hitting me harder than ever over the last couple of months is the fact that my day-to-day experience of life and the baseline of things that I need for contentment are not driven by extreme things in the outside world at all. And having those periods of mental clarity, whether I'm alone, so I could be on a jungle trek with a group of 5 people and I'm not alone, but we're having deep conversations and we're living in the moment. We're not drawn to the infinity of the internet every moment of every day. It allows you to reflect on what you need, what makes you content. And then when you get back into the real world, you have more mental fortitude, instead of having a thought or feeling slightly down and then going straight to Instagram Reels so that you don't put anything into folders, compartmentalize and mull over things. It teaches you to process things and appreciate the small things in life. I think so we're speaking about physical training a lot as well, but I use my time in the gym between sets as well, to whether I'm during a set or after, just to decompress, and it's a form of meditation as well. And yeah, it's super important, whether it's something you're doing entirely alone or just without the internet and technology around you. Take that time and don't crumble into seeking distractions. Sit in your thoughts and work through them, because people are getting worse and worse at it, for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I see people in the elevator in my building using on their phone, and the internet doesn't even work in the elevator. It's like this compulsion of just must be doing this. You don't even listen to music in the gym, is that right?
Yeah, that is true.
What? Tell me about this, because this is a rare minority of people that aren't wearing headphones in the gym today.
It's another thing that you can miss in the future. So if I forget my headphones, I don't want to be weaker or not enjoy it because I've forgot them. And also, a lot of people that listen to music in the gym, a bad song comes on, it's another thing to think about. Flick to the next song. No, I don't like this one. I've listened to it 100 times. What's the next one? Wait for the beat to drop, kind of thing. And then it's another external distracting factor that is something that I don't want to think about. And when I started, I had a lot of demons, perhaps, that I was working through and focusing on, that I didn't need to channel a distraction in order to and motivate myself to go to the gym, I'd have a negative self-talk that would say, come on, get in the zone. And then you zone out all of the music around you. And I still do the same thing. In the moment, if we were to, I'm sure we'll train together at some point. We haven't had the pleasure of doing so yet, but
yeah, I would love that.
All fun and games and talking. And then once those dumbbells are on your knees or the barbell's behind you and you're about to squat, I couldn't even tell you what song's on in the gym, because it's just a moment of pure focus inside my head. And so I don't need it in that regard. That's the mindset behind it. I recognize it's quite extreme, but it's peaceful for me.
I like it. I just look at your photos between sets. That's my fuel.
Yeah, nice.
Motherfucker, that's all right. But you're right. People do. It's very easy to use it as a fuel. Especially, I only listen to heavy metal in the gym. You know, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Metallica. I'm not listening to that while I'm doing my ironing. But in the gym, it just feels right. But I have noticed that sometimes, as you say, you go to do a training session without it, and you feel like something's missing. You almost feel weaker. So lately, especially as I'm really trying to focus on form and be very connected with the exercise, I think with music, it's almost easier. You start kind of dancing with the weight, and you're just throwing it around, and you're focusing on the music sometimes more than the muscle and mind connection.
Definitely. I haven't listened to music for any extended period of time, so I can't really compare the two as much. But I do know in the moment whether you've got a slight niggle, or you feel slightly weak, or you're thinking about various mental cues on a squat, for example, like keeping your knees out or focusing on your quads or your glutes or getting to the bottom. With that extra music as well, I wouldn't even have the mental capacity to worry about that, because I'm thinking about counting the reps and connecting with the muscles. So yeah, maybe
when you do have your downtime, what do you do to relax? Is it music? Is it TV shows, movies?
I'm a big movie man. I like obviously prioritizing social engagements for the reasons we've spoken about already, but I hate when someone recommends a TV show and they say, "Oh no, it gets good in episode 5." It's like I'm a busy man. I've got too much to do to be waiting for things to get good in episode 5. Not anything bad about, not to speak bad on Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones. I know people love those shows, but for me, I like the piece of art of wrapping something up in between 1.5 hours and 3 hours. I've grown up on movies. I love the character development, that you can resonate with the protagonists in them as well, and I love that they're their own entities. They're rewatchable, and tell a profound story that you can take into your own life in a lot of cases. So that's not to say I watch a movie every night, far from it. I've seen pretty much everything I want to, and Hollywood's actually declining quite a lot these days, so they're fewer and further between the good movies. But that's certainly one thing. I love poker as well. I wanted to be a poker player when I was 18 years old, so I do that occasionally, not for the making money, just to stay mentally sharp, and it gives me a bit of a thrill as well. I like pool increasingly, especially in the UK. I play pool my friend owns a snooker hall, so we hang out there every night.
I like that too. Yeah.
It's good. It's tactical. It's not too intense. But yeah, tactical. There's an element of hand-eye coordination, and you can have a conversation over it as well.
It's very relaxing, I find, when you're lining up the shot. When you take it to a somewhat serious level of you're not just whacking it in the bar. It's kind of like the gym, to get it right, you cannot think about other things. So I find it very relaxing to we have a pool table in the apartment, and just go and
nice.
And play pool for half an hour. Not my apartment, the building.
Yeah, right.
Just to clarify. Yeah, in my 5-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, you're doing well, James.
A snooker room, yeah.
That's interesting. This is I guess advice to anyone as well. It's seeking mini moments of flow state, and I would call pool or in the gym or doing something physical where you can't focus on anything else. You're just connected with your mind and your body. That reduces all anxiety, gives you a nice mental reset, and you feel like a human being just living in the moment. And I think that's a very peaceful, a good way to maintain peace throughout the day and throughout your life.
Even a great movie can be. It has to be a really good one. And I think especially you go to the cinema, when you watch an amazing movie for an hour and 30 minutes, 2 hours, I love that feeling when the lights come back up and you go outside of the theater room and it kind of feels weird to be back in reality. That's a sign that you've truly gone somewhere else for an hour and a half.
That's part of the reason why I love it as well, for sure. Even if I'm watching something at home in the dark or on a big screen, and the movie comes off or the movie finishes, and you think, wow, I forgot that I was a human observer of this thing, and I have my own life, that I'm my own story I'm telling. I was just in the moment identifying with those characters, and yeah, it's extremely powerful.
Yeah. Do you think of your own life as a movie in any way? Because it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as a yeah, it could be. That would be nice. That would be super cool to. Well, it kind of is all the YouTube, put them all together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I suppose I do, because I look at it as a story, and like I said about the deathbed analogy, and looking back when I'm 80, 90 years old on what I did and how the story shaped. Um, I think it's a very mentally powerful tool to know that when you're feeling extremely low or things aren't going well, this is just part of the story that you'll tell when things inevitably are good again. And yeah, I want my years to be full of life, no matter how long I live for. I want my years to be full of life, and so I definitely do think of it as I'd say a story rather than a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I recently came across this book, and it's literally called Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. It's this woman, I forget the name of the author now, but she worked in palliative care with elderly people. And after a few years, she just wrote this book saying, look, I've spoken to people who are on their deathbed. This is what they actually say. And the number one wasn't, oh, I wish I had spent so much time at work, or I wish I didn't care about money. It was, I wish I'd lived the life I wanted rather than the life others expected of me. And it sounds like you definitely broke out of that mold of expectation.
That is huge. Yeah, that's such a great piece of wisdom. Um, yeah, it's so hard to do. It's so hard to do, especially when you have financial or social commitments that mean you're bound by it. But I think I would agree with that. That living true to your true self is the making of a happy life.
And I think it's particularly good if you can do it at the kind of age that both of us went on our, journeys with regards to content and breaking out of the corporate world at a fairly similar age. There is a kind of sweet spot as a younger man of you don't have those commitments. I remember thinking, if I quit my job and the whole YouTube thing comes crumbling down, I don't have children to feed. I don't have a wife to take care of. My family is fine. It's only me that's going to get hurt if this goes wrong. So being able to take that onto yourself rather than worry about other people, it's kind of a blessing.
It's a blessing, but I think there'll be people watching this that are maybe 17-ish or even younger years old, and there's an element of you can orchestrate that yourself as well. So when I worked as a manager in a warehouse, I worked with a lot of first generation and second generation immigrants, a lot from Africa as well. And so the African men that I used to deal with and manage from the ages of 30 to 60, they often had multiple children, and they were now living in this more developed economy, and they were trying to provide for them, obviously, as every man does. And they ended up having to sacrifice the rest of their lives for all intents and purposes, because they're now working 60-hour weeks in order to make the money, in order to provide for the new lives of these children. And so having some level of thoughtfulness about, getting someone pregnant at very young is going to be an extreme burden and responsibility that you'll end up having to sacrifice yourself for. So being cognizant of that is quite important.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that can just be like multiplying any number by zero makes it zero, right? There are a few things that can happen that you just think, oh God. And, I think you can find meaning in whatever happens and almost make it to your advantage. But there are still generally some things for young men that you just want to avoid. One thing that actually surprises me that I get asked a lot by younger guys who are, as you say, 17, 18, is they want to do X. And it might not be an outrageous thing. It might be like, I want to be an engineer, but my parents want me to be a lawyer. And they feel like they can't break out of that. Is that something you experienced, or do you have any advice for guys who feel that pressure from their family, from society, to go down one particular lane?
I feel very bad. I'm very empathetic towards those people, because I think one of the biggest marks of a great parent is giving unconditional love and not treating that child like a mini version of you. So bestowing all of your insufficiencies and things that you'd wish you'd done, and make them be the version of you that you couldn't be. It's a very hard thing to let go of, I think, for a parent. But I think it's important. You don't know what combination of DNA is gonna pop out, and whether they're going to be sporty or intellectual or have hobbies that are entirely different as the world changes to you. And I was very fortunate that I think my parents put a lot of trust in me. They were so proud of the fact that I always worked hard in school and just did my best in everything, that there was an element of trust of, like, do what you want. We know, like, I'm pretty sure you're going to work hard, and you seem pretty switched on. So when I made the leap to quit my job, whether they thought it was a phase or whether they thought that it was going to be successful or not, I maybe earned enough stripes in terms of, this guy thinks about what he does. He doesn't just jump into things, not the guy that just did, like, messed around and did recreational drugs and they had to worry about. And so I'm lucky that I had parents that treated me in that way and didn't force me to go down a particular path. I think I've got a lot of friends that have gone down paths different to what their parents initially thought, and there was a lot of resistance at the start. I think you've just got to speak to them, reason with them, make sure that you explain the journey that you're on, and perhaps they won't be able to understand it or identify with it at all. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you. If you've got parents that are going to stop interacting with you and outcast you from their lives because you're not going to be a lawyer when they want you to, I don't think that's a relationship that you need in your life anyway. So it's easier said than done. But like you just said, that person gave their biggest piece of advice to be true to themselves and follow the path, to live for themselves, don't live for anyone else. I think we both completely agree with that. It's just whether someone can overcome that social anxiety and discomfort to get that job done.
Like you, my parents were fairly open to what I wanted to do. My dad was in the steel industry, so to him, YouTube might be like a Mickey Mouse job at first, but the more he has understood what I do, then he's very proud of me. But I was fortunate enough that I didn't have this weight on me of, you must do X because I did X, or I wanted to do X but I couldn't. I think to the guys that are going through that right now, you actually gave the best advice I've ever heard on this. And I don't think you even meant it as advice, but if you realize what's going on psychologically for them, that can help. When you realize, oh, actually, it's just them overcompensating, or them like mirroring their internal feelings on you, then it's easier to see it as a negative thing or something that you actually don't have to live up to. Just because my dad was a lawyer, that's why he wants me to be one. Or just because he didn't get the chance to do this doesn't mean I have to fulfill those dreams that for him were unfulfilled.
Definitely. No, I'm glad that resonated in that way. Yeah, I suppose I didn't give that directly as advice, but it's definitely true. That's the way I see it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about plans for the future. And I saw in one of your Q&A videos, somebody said, what's your 5-year plan? And you made a good point, which I feel the same way of, how on earth can I know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years? Because maybe you've had the same experience where very consistently, every year of my life, I look back at myself 1 year ago and think, he never would have guessed this would be happening right now. And then after that happening over and over again, you think, well, this time next year, what's going to be happening? And you start to realize how little, not little control, but how little of a clue you have about what's going to happen. So where do you like to draw that balance between spontaneity and planning, and how far ahead into the future are you looking with your life?
I'd be interested to get your answer on this now as well, so we can learn from each other. But yeah, I think now typically I like to plan between 6, honestly not more than 12 months at the moment, typically between 6 to maybe 15 months, just around the year mark, to have something to aim at. So I know, okay, I'm here now, and all else being equal, this is the direction we're going in, and we have a trajectory. And this is the advice that I give to people that say, I don't know what to do with my life, what should I do? It's like, do something, do anything, find some meaning and some purpose and work towards it. But yeah, you can make a 12-month plan and then 4 months go by and all of a sudden you have to completely course correct in a different way. Like if you get an opportunity that you can't turn down, you're going to do something and grow even faster than you would have been able to if you'd locked yourself into something for multiple years. And so, yeah, I think the main point is making sure you have direction and a path and something to work towards, but make that path somewhat malleable, and know that when that path expires, you have the opportunity to open yourself to new opportunities.
And I think having something to at least track and measure can be more important than having the goal. Because if you have the goal without a metric, how do you know when you're moving toward it? For me, my answer is probably similar to you. I remember a couple of months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I made some plans for summer 2025. Now, one of those goals I've already accomplished way quicker than I expected, and one of the biggest ones I've already changed my mind about. But just having that trajectory, I think, has helped me move in a positive direction. Because for a few months, I really wasn't setting goals because my whole idea of how my life was going to go had been turned on its head in a positive way. So it's like, oh, is this even worth it anymore? And then you start to stall in your progress and you think, okay, let's set some goals. They might change, but I try and set goals, especially in the earlier stages. If somebody's trying to get a YouTube channel off the ground, an Instagram account, a business, if you put your goal as X amount of views, X amount of subscribers, that's very out of your control. My goal was my output. And my goals now, I think, when I think about the future, it's more the person that I am rather than necessarily the car I drive or the money in the bank account.
Definitely. And I think something I do, regardless of whether the numbers are going up or doing well on YouTube or Instagram, I get barely any dopamine from, a huge subscriber or view count that goes crazy. Because for me, the thing that makes a difference in my mind is, am I doing the work? Am I proud of myself with the inputs that I've done? Am I making the videos? Am I trying to improve? Am I working hard? And then if the answer to that is yes, and I get 1,000 views on a video, or the answer to that is no, and I get 150,000 views on a video, I'll be a happier person in scenario number one, because I feel like I've deserved it, and I know I'm getting the input metrics right. So I'm glad that you identify and have the same approach in that regard.
And I'm sure you've had the experience of, you make a video, you're so proud of it, you think, this one, I've just handcrafted it to perfection. This one's gonna blow up, and then it gets nothing. And then you rush out a video in like 2-3 hours, and it ends up being one of your my first video that went viral, or got me a significant number of subscribers. I so nearly didn't upload because my hair didn't look good in it. I know. That's the price of vanity, I suppose.
Yeah, the price of vanity, and you can, you're your own harshest critic as well. It's important to remember that no one else pays anywhere near as much attention to your life as you do, and this helps with putting yourself online as well. You're gonna judge yourself on every small little thing, like your hair being not the way you wanted it to come across. But that's not part of the end goal, is it? The end goal is positively influencing people's lives, and that video obviously did so.
Yeah, and we've spoken a lot about physique and content creation, but I think what we've both learned, and you're so many miles ahead of me with regards to physique, but you learn lessons that are very applicable to different areas of your life. So I hope that somebody who's listening to this, even if you're still in school, you can apply some of these lessons to your position now.
100%, James. I think the things we've spoken about today are so well-rounded and applicable for 16-year-olds and 60-year-olds, and there's nuggets of ways that they can be applied to all areas of life. So it's been amazing going a bit deeper with you, because we have met in person and also chatted a few times, but we've not really got into it on this level. So it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, the meeting in London was a little hectic for a long conversation, unfortunately.
Yeah, James had a meet up in Soho, and I was in town as well, so made sure to head over, and we had, I don't know, maybe 4 minutes of conversation, something like that, before you got pulled every direction by everyone that made such an effort to be there. So it was great to see and great to attend, but obviously didn't give us much time.
Yeah, no, that was a great one. But hopefully we'll cross paths, and I would like to do a bit more traveling next year for sure. Indonesia is one place that it's been on my list for a while. And just before we go, I wanted to get your opinion on overrated and underrated destinations.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot. It's a huge list. I think I'll give you some just great ideas for anyone. So we'll start with the underrated, and I'll give you one kind of in each continent for a bit
Okay,
of,
great.
so it's rounded for people traveling from different continents. I think Guatemala in Central America is a fantastic country in terms of cost, safety, generally, activities that you can do, activities that you can do, and adventures that you can have. Guatemala is a fantastic introduction to someone that wants a bit more of an adventurous holiday than a typical tourist destination. So, if normally you would think about going to the Yucatan Peninsula or Cancun in Mexico, or going to Costa Rica as an American tourist, going to Guatemala on an adventure would be a great idea. They've got erupting volcanoes called Fuego, and a volcano you can climb called Acatenango. There's a beach where you can surf called El Paradon. There's quite bad crime in Guatemala City, but just a 45-minute drive outside of there is a beautiful Spanish colonial town called Antigua, not to be confused with Antigua, the Caribbean country, and a Lake Atitlan. It's a beautiful lake that you get boat ferries across and can cliff jump and various other things. So that's a great gem that's underrated for sure. A big backpacker crowd, but you can go at any age as a couple or whatever and find an incredible experience there. Let's go Africa. Tanzania. I've only been to 3 countries in sub-Saharan Africa: Tanzania, South Africa, and Namibia. To be honest, Namibia as well is extremely special if you wanted a big road trip in an environment. I always think water brings me a lot of peace and clarity, whether that's a river holiday or a beach ocean holiday. But the desert in Namibia was one of the most mentally clearing experiences I've ever had. We drove around the entire country over the course of 8 days, and one of the days we drove for 6 hours, so hundreds of kilometers, and saw one car. It's the second least densely populated country in the world, and it was an extremely peaceful, amazing country with a lot of cool history. A bit more of a rogue one, and I'll do that with a partner if you were to do that. Tanzania, the Serengeti, seeing that level of safari, and relatively cheap as well. You can do a 3-day safari for around 500 US dollars. So that was mind blowing to see over 100,000 wildebeest and zebra at one given time on the plains of Africa, and cheetahs and lions. That's a fantastic and not too adventurous. And I'm trying to give examples of places that, as an everyday man, if you want to step slightly further outside of your comfort zone, that is achievable. And in terms of Southeast Asia, the Philippines is a beautiful country, as is Indonesia. Philippines is a bit more difficult in terms of infrastructure to get around, and Bali in Indonesia is like little Europe or a small version of the West. It's entirely financially run by Russians, and it's very well developed. So you're not going to feel like you've gone very far if you go to Canggu at the south of Bali, but there's other places you can go. And I'm on an island right now to the east of Bali called Lombok, which has been a good level of infrastructure for me to work for a month, but also amazing beaches and such cool scenery and wildlife and fantastic locals as well, very safe. This island's Muslim, and so it's very lawless, so there's no police presence at all and no crime. But the reason there's no crime is because it's such a strong sense of community as part of the Muslim values, and so it's great for that reason as well. Overrated in terms of stress, I really don't like Cairo. Egypt is, if you want to be constantly tried to be sold to and be uncomfortable and just a very stressful experience all round. So people trying to haggle you and overcharge you for things. If you want to see the pyramids, get in for a day and get out is my advice on that one.
So it's the start of the morning for you, pretty much, yes. In Indonesia. What are you going to go and do today? What's a typical day in the life relaxing around in Indonesia?
It's I'm finding the balance constantly between hedonistic pleasure and doing my work. I've got one more week here, or just under a week, before I head back to the UK, and it's a lot of work. So I'm taking pleasure in the slow pace of life, detaching from technology quite a lot, doing around 2 to 3 hours work a day most of the time. So I've got a few client check-ins to do now, a little bit of social media preparation, I'm actually playing paddle this evening for an hour and a half, which is great fun. Anyone of any ability, if you can have somewhat hand-eye coordination, it's a very technical sport if you're good at it, and also anyone can play. So that's always good fun. And the surfing here is amazing. I'm not an incredible surfer, but I've picked it up pretty well since being here. So perhaps not today, just work and paddle um, yeah, surfing yesterday at sunset, tomorrow at sunset, and that's the vibe. Lots of good food as well, and I've got a couple of friends, a good circle here. So going for dinners with friends is, like I said earlier, the simple things in life makes a huge difference to my daily well-being and happiness. And the fact that I can ride my 150cc motorbike 3 minutes to a nice restaurant and meet some people that I'm connected with is like, what more can you ask for in life, you know?
Yeah, that's great. And the motorbike you just rent while you're there?
Yeah, it costs, let me tell you, it costs like $7 a day to rent a motorbike here. So very cheap. The fuel is a matter of pennies as well, or cents, as I guess you'd say in America. And yeah, I got my license. I learned actually in the Philippines, got my proper license in England. And it's a freeing way to travel. I really love it. No helmet, which is probably not the best idea, but I'm fairly sensible.
All right. Well, it sounds great. I want to pick your brains a bit more about this another time. I feel like we could easily go on for hours, but I don't want to keep you too much longer. So thank you for joining me. It's been a really, really interesting conversation. Where can people go to find you, or if they're interested in taking up your fitness program, your teachings about fitness, how can they go about that?
Yeah, thank you, James. Anytime you need any travel tips or advice as well, hopefully we'll link up in Indonesia at some point as well. That would
be a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do two things regarding physical fitness. You can find me on Instagram as Adam Radcliffe. And my name is Adam Radcliffe. That's my YouTube channel. And I made a little bit of a lifting pun, Adam Radcliffe. Thought it was funny at the time, and here we are. And I've got, so YouTube, where I document all of my adventures. Check them out if you want some escapism and some inspiration. And I drop nuggets of wisdom in there as well. And then on my Instagram, there's two links in my bio. One of them is more charity focused in terms of helping people for like no profit for myself. And then the other one is my one-to-one coaching. So I work with busy men, typically in the range of 20 to 50, 55 years old, that want me to completely streamline their physical progress. So they're busy, they're working. I look at their entire careers, their entire weekly schedule, and build, based on their training experience, the most optimal way for them to achieve their goal physique, whether it's losing fat initially or gaining muscle or somewhere in between. So I do one-to-one coaching, and I'm almost always fully booked, but as you know, I'm working very hard at the start of next year, and so I've got the opportunity to take on a load more spaces. So I feel apply there if that's something that's of interest to you. And then the other thing, the more charitable, less profit thing, is similar to James's school community, where he's getting gentlemen together to have a place where they can interact and potentially meet each other in real life and discuss conversations with like-minded men. I've got an app where it's free for 7 days, so you can just get in there and have a look. And then also it's the price of a cup of coffee per week, just for running costs and to maintain the work I put into it. So essentially it's a way for you to get the best value possible of, if you don't want or can't afford one-to-one coaching, all of my training plans, all of my nutrition advice and guidance, and all of my training principles as well, and a community in there where you can see that other people are working hard as well, and we run challenges sometimes, so you can get involved with that. And James is actually in there, so he's starting to post a little bit more.
It's a great app.
Yeah, you were following one of the programs for a while, and in the new year, I'm going to badger you to follow one with more detail in the future, and I'm excited to see your posts in the community as well.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for joining me. I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you have a beautiful day in Indonesia. It sounds like a good one.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me, James. Like I said, it's been great to go into some more detail, and very much looking forward to seeing you in real life again and for chatting on the next one.
Yeah.